At 6:12 local time, the flight deck is already alive. Steel chains clatter once, then fall silent. A deck crewman stops mid-step the moment a voice cuts across the ship-wide net. Short, flat, impossible to mistake. Bridge to CIC. New surface contacts on the radar repeater. 3 returns appear at the edge of the screen. Tight, clean, fast. No AIS. No commercial profile. No drift in course. The U.S. Navy carrier keeps moving steadily through calm Caribbean water, holding a constant heading. Wind over the deck is stable. Sea state is low. Nothing on the surface hints at trouble. The scope tells a different story. 3 surface contacts, bearing 087, range 32 nautical miles, speed climbing. The CIC watch officer delivers the report without pause. These are not fishing boats. Their acceleration is too smooth, too controlled. 12 knots becomes 18, 18 becomes 24. Inside the Combat Information Center, the lights dim automatically as operators lean closer to their consoles. Radar modes shift, tracks sharpen. One by one, the contacts resolve into steel hulls. Naval vessels. The next recommendation comes through, quieter this time. Recommend Condition 3. No one objects. Across the carrier, systems change state with practiced calm. Magazines unlock. Hatches are secured. Non-essential movement on the flight deck stops. Aircraft already positioned remain exactly where they are. Engines cold. Pilots strapped in, waiting. No alarms, no sirens, just discipline. The 3 vessels continue in formation, spreading laterally as they close. Classic pressure geometry. One drifts slightly north, another south, while the third stays centered, forcing the carrier group to manage all 3 vectors at once. Closest point of approach is projected at less than 6 nautical miles if the current course holds. The carrier does not change speed. It does not change heading. On the bridge, the captain studies the surface plot without expression. He never raises his voice. He doesn't need to. Everyone in the room already understands what this means. Maintain course, he says. Log everything. Long-range optics swing outward. Cameras lock on. High-resolution imagery streams into CIC. Every frame time-stamped, geo-referenced, archived in real time. Visual confirmation comes at 28 nautical miles. Gray hulls, military silhouettes, uncovered forward guns, antennas active. Flag confirmation? The bridge asks. A brief pause. Visual ID complete. Venezuelan Navy. 3 surface combatants. The words hang for a moment, but nobody reacts. This is not shock. It is calculation. The Venezuelan ships keep coming, wake stretching behind them. Their spacing tightens, then settles. They are not wandering. They are not confused. They are choosing this intercept. Radio channels remain silent. No bridge-to-bridge call, no warning from either side. In a moment like this, silence is not absence, it is intent. The carrier's escorts, destroyers on the outer ring, begin subtle adjustments. A degree of rudder here, a fractional speed change there. Not enough to signal escalation, more than enough to shape space. Above them, an E-2D Hawkeye circles out of sight, its radar sweeping the entire surface picture in a single pass. Farther out, a P-8 Poseidon listens, gathering every emission, every pulse, every faint sign of intent. Inside CIC, one operator leans back slightly. They're tightening formation. Range drops to 21 nautical miles. Through magnified optics, figures are now visible on the Venezuelan decks. Helmets. Movement near the forward mounts. Nothing aimed yet, but close enough to notice. Fire control radar? The captain asks. Negative, CIC replies. Surface search only. Low power. That detail matters. They are watching, but not yet locking. At 15 nautical miles, the geometry becomes impossible to misread. One Venezuelan ship angles inward, taking a line that would carry it directly across the carrier's projected track. Not a collision course, a challenge course. The carrier does not flinch, no fighters launch, no guns traverse, no warning lights flash. The message is restraint, but restraint backed by overwhelming readiness. Every system aboard the carrier is awake now, not rushed, not excited, simply ready. CPA, now under 4 nautical miles. CIC reports. Time to closest approach, 11 minutes. The captain gives a single nod. Continue recording. Outside, the sea remains calm. Sunlight flashes across steel. From a distance, it could pass for any ordinary day at sea. But on the scope, 3 Venezuelan naval vessels are still closing. Fast, deliberate, silent. And within minutes, one of them will decide whether this remains a standoff or becomes something else entirely. At 6:24 local time, the geometry hardens. The 3 Venezuelan vessels keep advancing, but their spacing shifts. The lead ship holds speed. The 2 flankers drift outward by several hundred yards, widening the arc. It is a deliberate move, stretching the carrier group's attention and forcing multiple bearings to be managed at once. Inside CIC, no one speaks unless necessary. Contacts maintaining 26 knots, the Surface Watch reports. Course steady, formation stable. The carrier's escorts answer without a word. On the outer screen, a guided missile destroyer eases 10 degrees to port. Another adds half a knot. Not to close distance, but to deny it. To an untrained eye, the changes might seem incidental. They are anything but. This is space control. No warnings are transmitted. No challenge is issued. The carrier does not publicly acknowledge the Venezuelan ships at all. That restraint is deliberate. Radio traffic creates narratives. Silence creates leverage. Above the formation, invisible to the naked eye, the E-2D Hawkeye adjusts its orbit. Its radar paints every hull, every wake, every minor change in speed. Farther still, a P-8 Poseidon flies racetrack patterns at altitude, listening, recording, cataloging. Every emission from the Venezuelan ships is being collected. Back on the bridge, the captain watches the range tick down. His posture never changes, neither does the carrier's course. "Hold flight ops," he says calmly. "No launch." On the deck below, crew members remain frozen in place, hands on chains, eyes forward. Pilots stay strapped into their cockpits, visors down, engines cold. This is not hesitation, it is discipline. The Venezuelan lead ship inches closer to the carrier's projected path. Not enough to force an evasive move, enough to make the point. Inside CIC, a fresh data line appears. Electronic activity increasing, the EW officer reports. Surface search radar sweep rate just changed. They're refining us. Not a fire control lock, not yet. But the attention is unmistakable. The destroyers on the perimeter answer in kind, not with visible force, but with posture. Their spacing tightens, their angles sharpen. From above, the carrier strike group now resembles a moving fortress with overlapping arcs of control. Every approach lane is covered. The Venezuelan vessels do not slow. At 12 nautical miles, visual detail becomes crystal clear. Hull numbers, crew movement. The forward gun on the lead ship remains pointed ahead, but personnel are visible nearby. Helmets on, no panic, no bravado, professionals. CPA now under 3 nautical miles. If nothing changes, CIC reports. Time to CPA, 8 minutes. The carrier remains steady. A junior officer glances at the captain, waiting for an order that never comes. The captain understands the doctrine. Pressure must be met with control, not reaction. Every unnecessary move signals uncertainty, and uncertainty is exactly what the other side is probing for. On the Venezuelan ships, antennas twitch. A narrow radar sweep brushes across the carrier's escorts, logged instantly, tagged, time-stamped. The electronic warfare team does not jam. Not yet. Silence allows cleaner collection. At 10 nautical miles, the first visible deviation appears. One Venezuelan flanker edges inward by a few degrees, compressing the formation. Small movement, major meaning. The geometry shifts from observation to influence. Inside CIC, a watch officer exhales slowly. They're testing the line. The response is immediate but quiet. A destroyer on the carrier's starboard quarter increases speed by 1 knot and slides forward. Its bow now subtly blocks the Venezuelan ship's most favorable intercept angle. No radio call, no visible threat, just steel occupying space. The Venezuelan ship holds course for 30 seconds. Then, almost imperceptibly, it adjusts 2 degrees outward. Not retreat. Correction. The pressure remains. At 8 nautical miles, the carrier's long-range cameras zoom tighter. Faces on the Venezuelan bridge are now visible. Binoculars raised, eyes fixed on the carrier's island. Still no hails, still no warnings. The air stays calm. The sea stays flat. The tension across every ship is absolute. The carrier strike group has not fired, not threatened, not escalated. But it has done something even more decisive. It has taken control of the encounter without announcing it. Every possible move the Venezuelan ships can make is already accounted for. Every angle mapped, every emission recorded, every second logged. The Venezuelan commander is now left with fewer and fewer choices, and none of them on his own terms. In the final minutes before closest approach, one ship will have to decide whether to press closer or silently accept that the space ahead is no longer theirs to shape. At 6:33 local time, the margin vanishes. The range drops through 7 nautical miles, then 6. On the surface plot, the symbols nearly touch. This is no longer distant maneuvering. This is close enough that intent matters more than speed. CPA projected under 2 nautical miles, the watch officer says. Time to CPA, 5 minutes. No one repeats it. No one needs to. The Venezuelan lead ship adjusts again. 3 degrees to starboard. Small enough to look accidental, large enough to matter. Its new vector now threads directly across the carrier's projected track, Not blocking it outright, but narrowing the corridor until only one outcome seems possible if nothing changes. Inside CIC, posture tightens. Surface search radar just went active. High power, the electronic warfare officer reports. They're painting us deliberately now. That crosses a line, not a hostile one, but a psychological one. It means they are no longer simply observing, they are asserting presence. The carrier does not answer. No radar spike, no countermeasure, no change in speed. On the bridge, the captain watches the Venezuelan hull grow larger in the forward optics. When he speaks, his voice stays level. Launch the helo. On the flight deck, movement returns instantly. Chains come free. The rotor blades of the MH-60R Seahawk begin to turn, slow at first, then faster, biting into the still Caribbean air. No visible weapons, no open doors. Today, it is not a strike platform. It is a message. At 6:36, the helicopter lifts from the deck and slides low over the water, staying below the Venezuelan ship's horizon until the final moment. Then it rises just enough to be seen, close enough to be unmistakable. Inside the Seahawk, the sensor operator powers up the MX-20 turret. High-definition optics lock onto the Venezuelan lead ship. Faces, helmets, heat blooming from the engines and the forward mount. Every detail is captured. Every second is marked. At 5 nautical miles, the Venezuelan vessel stays on course. No radio reply, no flares, no sudden movement. The Seahawk eases into a parallel track off the port side, holding a measured lateral offset. It doesn't cut across the bow. It doesn't crowd the mast. It simply places itself where it cannot be ignored. Then the laser appears. A steady green point settles on the bridge windows. Not a strike, not a direct threat, but unmistakable. It moves slowly and deliberately. No shake, no rush, just calm precision. A voice follows on the open maritime channel. Venezuelan naval vessel. This is a United States Navy helicopter operating in international waters. Your maneuvering is unsafe. Alter course immediately. The message is repeated in Spanish. Still no answer. On the Venezuelan deck, people shift position. One sailor steps away from the forward gun. Another lifts binoculars. Someone points toward the bridge. Inside CIC aboard the carrier, the range continues to shrink. CPA now 1.8 nautical miles. This is the threshold. If the Venezuelan ship holds its line, the encounter moves from pressure to direct confrontation, not because of policy, but because of simple physics. At this distance, steel does not negotiate. The Seahawk holds its position without wavering. The laser remains fixed. Cameras keep rolling. Then, at last, the picture changes. The Venezuelan ship's wake begins to shorten. Its bow wave softens. Speed bleeds off by a knot, then another. 26 knots becomes 23. The course remains steady for 10 seconds more. Then, almost reluctantly, the bow drifts outward by 2 degrees. Not enough to look like retreat, enough to break the intercept geometry. Inside CIC, nobody celebrates. Speed decreasing, the Surface Watch reports. Course adjustment confirmed. The Seahawk makes one wide, unhurried orbit, maintaining presence. The laser clicks off. The radio falls silent again. On the Venezuelan bridge, a sailor briefly raises both hands, palms outward. Universal maritime language. Acknowledgement without words. The helicopter gives no response. None is needed. At 4 nautical miles, the danger window starts to widen. The carrier's track is no longer directly threatened. The escorts hold their positions, denying any fresh attempt to close in. But one Venezuelan ship has not yet adjusted. It still holds speed. It still watches. The encounter is not over. It has simply reached the point where intent has been revealed and restraint has been chosen for now. Because at this range, everyone understands the same truth. The next choice, whether to press forward or break away, will not be symbolic. It will be decisive. At 6:41 local time, the balance begins to shift. Not dramatically, not all at once. It moves the way pressure always moves at sea, quietly, by degrees, until suddenly the whole picture is different. The Venezuelan lead ship keeps slowing. 23 knots becomes 21. The bow wave flattens. The hull still moves ahead, but the sense of commitment is gone. Behind it, the second ship follows almost immediately. Its wake shortens. The spacing opens. Only the third vessel holds firm. Inside the Combat Information Center, the surface plot tells the story before anyone says it aloud. 2 contacts easing outward, one still holding the line. The formation that arrived tight and assertive is no longer unified. Uncertainty has entered the frame. The carrier does nothing dramatic in response. It does not surge ahead. It does not turn into the opening. It does not push the advantage. Because at this stage, dominance is not about forcing movement. It is about removing options. The escorts keep their geometry with surgical precision. One destroyer maintains a blocking angle on the remaining Venezuelan ship. Another stays just far enough offset to seal any corridor that might invite renewed pressure. Above them, the air picture is complete. The Hawkeye's radar tracks every vessel continuously, reading intent not only through position, but through hesitation. Small adjustments, tiny throttle changes, slight yaw corrections that reveal uncertainty. Every move is logged. On the Venezuelan ships, antennas still twitch. Radar sweeps continue, but the pattern has changed. Less confidence, less insistence. The electronic warfare team aboard the carrier notices at once. They're reducing sweep rate, the EW officer reports. Not backing off, but they're thinking. That matters. Thinking slows action, and slowed action at sea favors the side already in control. The MH-60R Seahawk remains airborne, but its posture has shifted. No longer parallel, now higher and farther back. Still present, no longer intrusive. Its sensors remain active. Its cameras continue recording. It has already said everything it needed to say. At 7 nautical miles, the third Venezuelan ship finally adjusts. 1 degree, then 2. Not retreat, but no longer an intercept. The corridor opens just enough to remove collision risk. Inside CIC, the watch officer marks the change. Intercept geometry broken. Still no celebration. No visible release of tension. Because quiet control is not proven by emotion, it is proven by continuity. The carrier strike group continues exactly as planned. Same heading, same speed, same posture. The world has not bent around the Venezuelan ships. They have bent around it. On the Venezuelan decks, body language changes. People drift away from the forward mounts. Helmets stay on, but shoulders loosen. Binoculars lower. A few sailors glance toward the Seahawk, then away. The psychological phase is ending. This is the stage where the most dangerous encounters usually collapse. Not into chaos, but into clarity. One side realizes it has gone as far as it can go without consequences it cannot shape. The carrier offers no acknowledgement, no radio message, no gesture, no declaration, none is necessary. At 10 nautical miles, the 3 Venezuelan ships are now clearly outside the carrier's immediate maneuver space. Still present, still observing, but no longer setting the terms. The escorts subtly widen their screen again, returning to default spacing. The Seahawk begins a slow recovery toward the carrier, never fully turning its back until the deck is in sight. Flight operations remain paused, not from fear, but from discipline. There is no reason to introduce new variables before the encounter is fully settled. From the bridge, the captain watches the plot steady itself. He says nothing for several seconds, then quietly, maintain course. The carrier's bow continues through open water unchanged. Behind it, the Venezuelan ships move off on diverging tracks, each now confined by a reality they did not control. Their pressure dissolves not because it was met with force, but because it was met with certainty. Every decision they made is now recorded, every pause archived, every signal cataloged. The control exercised here will mean little on camera and even less in headlines, but it will matter. Because the next time these ships meet, or others like them do, the memory of this geometry, this silence, this restraint will already be present. And restraint, when backed by unmistakable capability, does not invite pressure. It ends it. At 6:56 local time, the surface picture stabilizes. The 3 Venezuelan naval vessels still appear on radar. They are still there, still moving. But the geometry that defined the encounter is gone. Their tracks no longer converge. Their speeds no longer match. Their formation has dissolved into 3 separate courses, each one avoiding the space it had tried to shape only minutes earlier. The carrier strike group does not react. No pursuit. No tightening of the screen. No visible triumph. The carrier remains on its planned heading as though nothing unusual happened. That, in itself, is the final message. Inside CIC, operators begin closing the loop, not on the surface plot, but on the data. Every radar sweep from the Venezuelan ships, every throttle adjustment, every course change. Every hesitation at the edge of the line. The electronic warfare team compiles emissions, frequencies, power levels, and timing. Patterns that reveal more than a direct clash ever could. The intelligence officers say very little. They do not need to. This is no longer raw collection. It is finished material. On the flight deck, the MH-60R Seahawk settles back onto the deck with a smooth landing. Rotor wash fades, chains snap back into place. The crew steps out without ceremony. No discussion on deck, no glances toward the horizon, only quiet efficiency. The carrier announces nothing on open channels. It issues no statement. It asks for no explanation. Explanations belong to the side that lost control of the moment. Below decks, the logs fill with clean, time-stamped entries that describe the encounter exactly as it unfolded. Without embellishment, without commentary. 3 Venezuelan naval vessels approached. carrier maintained course, escorts controlled geometry, airborne surveillance deployed, intercept posture broken, no shots fired. That is all the record needs to say. But what happened here was not insignificant. It was a transfer of leverage. The Venezuelan commanders will carry this moment forward. Not as a defeat, they will never define it that way, but as a boundary drawn without force, without speeches, without escalation. They tested the space. The space did not yield. For the carrier strike group, it becomes one more confirmation that presence, when backed by discipline, changes behavior without a single round being fired. This is the part most people never see. There is no explosion, no warning shot, no dramatic turn at top speed, only a steady ship moving forward while everything around it begins to adjust. That is modern naval dominance. Not simply the power to destroy, but the power to decide when destruction is unnecessary. As the Venezuelan ships fade farther from the carrier's immediate picture, flight operations resume. Aircraft begin to taxi. Engines spool up. The deck comes back to life. Routine returns. But nothing about the encounter is forgotten. Every sensor aboard the carrier and its escorts has learned something. Every operator has watched pressure meet certainty. Every commander has seen again that credible restraint controls escalation more effectively than aggression ever could. And for the Venezuelan crews watching the carrier recede into the distance, the lesson is quieter but sharper. They did not force a course change. They did not compel a reaction. They did not set the terms. They met a wall that never had to announce itself. That is what, and then this happened, really means here. Nothing exploded, nothing burned, no headlines followed, but control shifted. And in the mathematics of naval power, that shift matters more than any exchange ever could. So the real question is not whether the carrier should have acted more aggressively. The real question is whether aggression would have achieved anything at all. Out there in open water, 3 warships pressed forward and found the exact point where pressure stops working, when it meets a force that has nothing to prove. The carrier never slowed, it never turned, and it never had to.